rising out of the ashes together. Our topic on this evening is domestic violence on campus. We have with us our co-host, Bob Wood, who is the Title IX coordinator at Gwinnett Mercy University. We have with us Maria Jordan, the nursing instructor at Gwinnett Mercy University. Alyssa Fortunato, president of Morgan's Light Alliance Against Dating Abuse. And we also have with us Brooke Balkowitz, president of the AAUW chapter. Listeners, if you have any questions for our guest or any comments for our guest or our co-host, you can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. If you have any resources that you would like to share with us on a national or local level, or from your country, your community, your local faith organizations, or just anywhere in your communities, you can also email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com, and we will share that information for you and with the rest of our listeners. With that, Bob, would you greet our listeners on tonight?
Yeah, good evening. And again, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me here. I'm very happy to be here tonight because I have three colleagues from Gwinnett Mercy University that will speak, and I can take a backstage and let them run the show. I'm so happy they're here. Now, these people I work with, and it'll be an interesting and enlightening evening.
Yes. Brooke, would you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure thing. You pronounced my last name beautifully. Usually people can't get that. So I'm Balkowitz. I'm a junior nursing major at Gwinnett Mercy University, and I'm also the president of Gwinnett Mercy's chapter of AAUW, which is the American Association of University Women. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone, for having me, and I hope it's an enlightening and powerful conversation tonight.
Thank you. Maria, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Jordan, and I'm a nursing instructor at Gwinnett Mercy University. I've been working there since 2014. I've had the pleasure of teaching, or I should say they have taught me, both Brooke and Alyssa. So I am so grateful to both you and Bob for having me here, and I'm so looking forward to our conversation tonight.
Thank you. And Alyssa, would you please greet our listeners on tonight?
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Fortunato. I am also a junior nursing student at Gwinnett Mercy, and then I'm the president of Morgan's Light Alliance Against Dating Abuse. And thank you so much for having us, and hopefully this will be a good conversation.
Well, I believe it will be, and thank you again so much for being here, all of you. And Bob, you will not be taking a back seat. We always need to hear your voice, Bob. We want to start by sharing some resources, and then we will move into our topic. First, we have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their website is thehotline.org. Their phone number is 1-800-799-7233. And then we have Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, also known as RAIN. Their website is www.rainn.org. And then we have the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape, also known as PCAR. Their website is www.pcar.org. And their phone number is 1-888-772-7227. And listeners, we want to remind you again, wherever you are located, if you reach out to the national level of help for domestic violence or sexual assault, the national information or agency will be able to direct you to a local agency closer to where you live. The information that we shared on tonight, this is in the United States, but you can search wherever you are to find what it is that you need. And with that, we're going to move into our topic, which is domestic violence on campus. And so I would ask Alyssa, if you would please tell us, what is Morgan's Light Alliance and how it came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So Morgan's Light Alliance is a club at Gwinnett Mercy University, and it's also at a few other college campuses, with the goal of educating young adults to recognize the difference between healthy and toxic relationships. So we were formed based on the larger organization Morgan's Light, which was formed in 2020 after 18-year-old Morgan McCaffrey was tragically killed by her ex-boyfriend in an act of domestic violence. So her mom formed Morgan's Light to be able to educate young adults and provide resources for domestic violence. And then we continue that on college campuses.
Awesome. It sounds like Morgan's Light is geared towards prevention. Is that
Yes,
correct?
absolutely.
Okay.
Prevention, and then also just providing resources to people who are experiencing domestic violence as well.
Okay. Awesome. Brooke, if you could tell us what exactly is the AAUW and how does it interact with issues of domestic violence on campus?
Yes, so sort of how Alyssa mentioned that Morgan's Light is a part of a larger organization, kind of like a mother branch. It's the same concept with AAUW. There is a larger AAUW branch, kind of a national branch, and we are just the Gwen and Mercy branch of AAUW. Our message is pretty much to empower women and bring awareness of different gender issues on campus. There's a lot of misconceptions with kind of what we stand for. We are not strictly a women's club. We advocate for all different types of gender issues, and similar to domestic abuse, dating violence, domestic violence, it doesn't just happen to women. It can happen to any member of the LGBTQ community, men, women, non-binary, really anyone that is actively dating. So we like to host events of awareness for domestic violence as a whole.
Okay, so does Morgan's Light and AAUW, do you interact with other college campuses and universities with programs that they may have on their campuses, or is this strictly just work that you do on the campus of Gwinnett Mercy?
So I know for at least for Morgan's Light, we have chapters based at other colleges, but it's more interacting at the level of Gwinnett Mercy, and then we'll do some events with the Morgan's Light organization as well in the community.
Okay. Brooke, is that the same for you?
So Alyssa's chapter of Morgan's Light and my chapter of AAUW, we love to collaborate with each other on an inter-campus basis. As far as other college campuses in the area, I'm not 100% sure if they do have an AAUW branch or Morgan's Light branches. I know Alyssa mentioned that there are other college campuses for AAUW. I am not sure. However, we raise money and awareness on a community level, but also on a nationwide level as well. So we work directly within the Gwinnett community to, like I said, raise money, host events, things of that nature.
Okay. So Maria, as the nursing instructor, do you prepare your students to recognize and prepare them on how to respond to domestic violence, and is it maybe a shock to them to hear that this may be part of their profession? I don't think anyone signs up thinking I'm going to run into issues of domestic violence, when they're choosing a major,
Yeah. So that's a great two-pronged question. First, yes, I do. We do teach domestic violence. And second of all, it really sadly is not a surprise to most of the students that we talk with. In fact, they bring so much to the class as far as their experience. I'm privileged to have always been a behavioral health nurse. So it's my passion. And I love that I can teach beautiful individuals like Brooke and Alyssa, because they're our future in nursing. And with every class that we teach, whether it's anxiety or stress or trauma or violence, I'll say, who can relate to this? You don't have to raise your hand. Just look at me with your eyes. And oh my gosh, the eyes that I get. So it is out there, whether people have experienced it themselves or whether they love someone who have, or whether they have cared in their role as a nursing tech.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
I'm sorry.
Oh, you can finish. Yes.
No, so yes, we really do teach how to recognize it, in each other on campus, because we always say like the campus is a microcosm of society, right? What's what we're seeing, everyone is seeing. So just the decreasing of the stigma and saying it's okay for us to ask each other, are you okay? You don't seem like yourself. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you are with your students, when you're teaching them how to recognize the issue of domestic violence and instances that may come up, how do you actually do that? Is it literally part of the curriculum? Are you teaching out of textbooks? Is it just something that you just do in a classroom or online? How do you actually get the information across?
Well, I'm so glad that we are past active COVID times, because we are face to face. It was always so challenging to teach students of any nature, but certainly of such fragile subjects, right? So it's face to face. It's part of our curriculum. I'm not a textbook lover, but it's in our textbooks. But what I like to do is bring it into the room. And I've had some students through the semesters that have been brave enough to come to me and say, I'd like to share my story. And there's nothing like someone sharing their story. And, people they may have gone to school with this person for 3 years and never knew that, because they carry themselves so well, and that's what brought them into nursing. So, yes, we teach the theory and the textbook and that kind of thing, but really want to teach them how to, recognize it in the patient, and to be able to listen to them, not judge them. They know better than to ask the question why around me. We don't need to know why about anything, right?
Yes.
So I'm rambling. Excuse me.
No, you're fine. Bob, do you have a question or a comment?
I'm going to pick up where Maria just was. I'm so glad you said listen, because again, future nurses, as everybody here knows, before education, I was a police officer in Baltimore City, and quite frequently I had to answer calls that dealt with domestic violence, and in getting people to the care that they need and the assistance they needed, especially at the medical area, quite frequently the nurses are that first step. Pardon me. Especially if I stepped into a volatile situation, my job was to calm that volatile situation down, get the person the help they needed, get the parties, separated as best we possibly could. And again, many times in that emergency room setting or whatever, the first step in that healing process began. And it began with ladies like yourself who listen. And you've heard me say this before when I'm teaching my investigators in Title IX, the first thing I tell them is please close this and open the ears. Listening is the most important thing. I would ask a question. As students at your level, sometimes students are hesitant to come forward with these types of issues. What factors do you think contribute to that in a campus environment?
Brooke, if you don't mind, I think a really big thing, especially on college campuses, is the fear of just social comeback with it. So people, come forward against someone on campus, and it's just that fear that, oh, well, now this person's going to know that I came forward, and all of their friends are going to find out, and I'm going to end up being this outcast on campus. Because no one wants to be that person that got someone else in trouble or got someone else expelled. So I think it's that fear of not wanting to become this outcast or this not liked person on campus, because this is so such a sensitive topic to bring forward. And I think a lot of that also is really just the stigma of domestic violence, especially in younger adults, because a lot of times we think of domestic violence and we think, oh, it's this 40-year-old married woman, and that's not what it always is. In adults, it's in teens. So just that stigma of being afraid to come forward for fear of what other people may think.
Yeah, I completely agree with Alyssa. We actually had a conversation very similar to this not too long ago. I think definitely negative social outcomes has a lot to do with coming forward, but I also think another piece of the puzzle is uncertainty of what the situation was. Like not really understanding, was that sexual assault? Was that rape?
Mhm.
I kind of maybe I was asking for it, or maybe I deserved it, or just kind of that gray area and uncertainty of I'm not really sure what that looks like, or if this
Mhm.
situation can be classified as that. And I think that's where education is so important to kind of make that gray area black. I mean, nothing's black and white, let's face it, but to kind of clarify that uncertainty and so no, like that was sexual assault and that did happen to you. And it's it's okay to not be okay and you can come forward with that, even if, you're not so sure about it.
Mhm. So, speaking of that gray area and the educational piece, and helping a person to understand and confirm within themselves the situation that they were in and what happened to them. So, Maria, is that something that is covered with the nurses or soon to be nurses in the classroom? That education piece of what domestic violence and what sexual assault actually is?
Yes, we use the nursing process with every topic that we teach. So the first part of it is the assessment. So we can recognize those red flags, those behavioral changes, those appearances of depression, anger, whatever the issue is. And then the planning and the implementing. But the part that I love to stress in areas as sensitive as this is that evaluation. And that includes, are we helping that person where they are? And number two, how are we doing with that process? Because so many times nurses will take in all these issues and they feel it. And it adds to their, I hate the word burnout, but it adds to their stress level and
Yeah.
it interferes with their ability to really be present with the person that they're with, right? Because they're carrying so much baggage and so much sadness of their own. So I like when our students are able to reflect on how difficult it is. And what are you going to do when you work with people like this? How are you going to take care of yourself so that you can better care for your patients?
Yes. So, Brooke and Alyssa, again with the educational piece, because sometimes it's not prevention that you're dealing with. There are issues and circumstances. Someone will come to you, and this has actually happened. So, how within your organizations, how did the two of you stress or help individuals confirm to them the same, that this is real, this did happen, and do you clearly define in your organizations, this is what domestic violence is, this is what sexual assault is, to help individuals come to that understanding?
I think for Morgan's Light, at least, it's a lot of it after this has happened is that listening piece. And really just allowing that person who has experienced this to talk to us and um kind of just validating their feelings of, whatever you're feeling right now, whatever you want to label this as is valid. Um, and then providing those resources that are maybe a little bit above our club, like Title IX, counseling,
Mhm.
and then even like local and national resources that can help them a little bit more with maybe legally wise, like what this would be considered or that. But I think as far as our club goes, it's more just validating that whatever you are feeling and whatever you want to term this as to process it in your own way is 100% valid, and we are here to help you in whatever way you need.
Mhm.
In terms of AUW, so our club messages differ a little bit as in AUW is a little bit more broad. We cover a multitude of different topics and issues within the community, not just domestic violence and dating violence. Morgan's Light is a little bit more focused towards that issue. However, I will say, and this is a little bit off the path of AUW, Gwynedd Mercy does such an amazing job with education on an overall level, not just with the nursing program. I mean, I always tell people I think everybody should go through the nursing program, no matter if you actually want to be a nurse or not, because you have learned so much life skills. And I think it just makes you overall a better person. But that's another conversation for another day. But like Professor Jordan said, they really do, like Gwynedd, not just in the nursing program, they really do take that first step in opening the conversation and training people. Like, for example, I was QPR trained, not sexually assault related directly. It's suicide training. It's
Mhm.
question, persuade, and refer. And just going, I actually been trained twice in that. And just going through that training, it can be used for any situation. You know, you start that first question like, "Are you okay? I've noticed, I've seen," and kind of start that situation, and then you hear them, active listening, critical thinking. You hear them, and then you refer them to the proper resources, the proper authorities, like Melissa mentioned, or I believe you mentioned Title IX. So Gwynedd does a really nice job with training them. And we, as AUW, like I'm trained, I'm the president. So people are free to come to me with any of the concerns, stories, or issues. And I'm trained in that. And I'm able to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. And so on and so forth.
Okay. So, Brooke and Alyssa, how exactly do your organizations work together? How do you support each other? And what are some of the things that you do together? And do you consult with Maria? Because as a nursing instructor and her experience in the field itself that she could bring, how do you guys work together? And do you consult with Maria with the the programs that you do or events?
So Brooke and we chat very often about our clubs, and we've actually this is the first year that Morgan's Light is on campus. We are very new, but we did a fundraising event and educational event with AAUW. So hopefully, I'm sure there'll be many more collaborations in our future. Um, and then as for Maria Jordan, what she didn't mention is she's actually the club advisor, faculty advisor for Morgan's Light. So she is very much 100% involved with our club. And we're actually working on a couple ideas for next year with bringing guest speakers into the nursing program that kind of have more of that like very firsthand experience with these types of issues. So definitely very, very involved.
Yes, and as for AEW, we, like I said, we collaborated with Morgan's Light, like Alyssa said. We love collaboration within the Gwynedd Club community, Black Student Union, Pride Alliance, Disability Pride. We have tons of clubs on campus, a lot of which represent minority groups. And we are big into collaborating with each other and kind of helping each other flourish on campus. Alyssa also did not mention, kind of filling in the gaps. We were recently a part of Take Back the Night with both Professor Jordan and Bob Wood. I I read some anonymous stories, and Alyssa was the big Morgan's Light piece, and her club provided some really nice Morgan's Light merch and informational brochures and just like counseling services cards. So we were a large part of that event this year.
Awesome. So, Maria, I want to ask you a question, and then Bob, I'll turn it over to you for a question or comment. So, Maria, with your experience, your knowledge, is there anything in particular that you would like to bring to these two groups? Is there anything that you would like to see happen that would just come from your personal experience?
I want to give these two groups the wings to fly. And I don't say that in a silly way at all, but there is so much beauty and potential and passion. I mean, you're just seeing the tip of the iceberg with Brooke and Alyssa. And for me to be able to teach these subjects and then to be involved at this, what I call service level, it's a dream to me, you know? So I don't want to be very prescriptive. I'm always present, and I feel like just allowing them to really do what their heart calls them to do. And again, I think the more that we allow our community at Gwinnett to feel safe enough to talk about these things, I just want to say a little piece about the collaboration. I think it's something that's kind of pertinent. Our counseling department is just amazing. And as far as guest speakers, every class, every semester, we have during anxiety class, a counselor come in. So this past semester, they said, can we do something a little different? We got a grant, and we're in the process of doing a mental health bystander video. Can we share this information with your class? See if people, and we signed consents and that sort of thing, but see if people are willing to share their story on tape. So it was the beginning. And then this is going to get collated into a video, an educational sharing that we're going to share with all disciplines. It's something we call the FYE, or the first year experience. So not just nurses, but business, psychology, any discipline that people are studying can be aware of how to recognize signs in each other of anxiety, depression, trauma, assault. So, yeah.
Thank you. Bob, do you have a question or comment?
First, I want to give accolades to all three of these ladies.
Yes.
And I want to tie what we've been doing. Week before last, we had Allison, Miss Denman, speaking from
Yes.
the Philadelphia sexual assault response unit. And Allison had come to campus, and had spoken to me, and Brooke was doing a clothing drive, and Allison made mention of some needs she had for clothing for people that were coming in, because the clothing in those instances, people sometimes forget, will become evidence. So it's taken. And Allison jumped in, and immediately we ended up with 3 boxes of clothing that evening. Brooke, rather. I'm sorry. I'm looking to listen, talking to Brooke. Brooke did that immediately. I know, because I was packing the boxes away later. Alyssa, I said, came in, and they got Morgan's Light involved and spread the word about the need for clothing and help with the clothing drive, which we started just before Take Back the Night. And my friend in the corner, Maria, has been just pounding the pavement and raising funds and getting people there to help Allison out. And I guess the irony to all of that is, as we know, Miss Denman's also a member of the Gwinnett Mercy, family. So I guess the point is, this all does intertwine.
Yes.
It all does intertwine, and everybody is needed. No matter, somebody may think I may not be putting that much in, but you know what? That little piece may make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. And my question, coming in, from my perspective as the Title IX coordinator, I agree with you. Education on all of these issues is the answer. How do we broaden the scope of that educational field from my office on campus? I know I just dropped the rock in the sorry. Because I say the reason, I'm sorry, Brooke, say again.
That's a really good question. Take a minute to think.
Okay, because you as nursing students know this. Technically, once a training session has been done, the mandates have been met. You've offered it, you've done it. But we all know, a one and done scenario in this field does not work. So just from your perspective as students and faculty, what's the avenue to broaden this? Because again, and I understand this, everybody is so busy. everybody is so busy. But then again, as we just said, there's a need to broaden that education.
You know, like you're tickling me already with a potential guest speaker job, so thanks for that. Because we do a legal and ethical class in our session, and why couldn't we have you or someone with that information come into the class and talk to my nursing students about Title IX and what is it? We hear it from out there, but how can we use it for ourselves as well as for our patients?
Yeah, that's an excellent answer. That's an excellent idea.
Writing that down.
I mean, I know, and again, this is not trying to put anybody on the spot, but do you think the majority of our community is also aware that one of the statutes that deals primarily with dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking has rolled under Title IX, and that would be the Violence Against Women Act? I'm watching the facial reaction. It is, which also speaks to something which maybe Maria, you may be able to answer. I know since I've been in the Title IX business, career, however you wish to say it, I've watched dating and domestic violence on campus and reports exponentially just grow. Year by year.
I could not agree more. As I was thinking about this evening, I remember a particular student, and brilliant. This was a few years back. And I could see a difference in her, like she just wasn't able to focus, she was missing classes. And listen, Brooke, I hope that I would call you in and say what's going on. And she was very reluctant to talk to me, but after kind of recovering a little bit, she was suffering from domestic violence. She had to speak to me one time in a parking lot because she was so afraid of being home and having a conversation as far as someone probing her. Like, what are you talking about? Why do you have to do this? The good news is working with her as an individual, she mastered that. She has passed her boards. She has jumped that man. And she's living a beautiful life with her little child. So I'm sorry to say that it seems like it's out there more and more, but I think that we are so receptive. Our community, I feel blessed to be. It's a brave and safe community where I think people can come and talk to us.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, so with that, Brooke and Alyssa, I want to ask you, are students more open to seeking out the help and resources of Morgan's Light and AAUW than they are as opposed to going to the authorities or Title IX coordinator?
I think for some students, it's definitely easier to talk to another student, especially when you have these clubs that are advertising that, hey, like we are someone that you can come to about this stuff, and we are here to help you and meet you where you're at with whatever you need. So I think some students are maybe a little bit more open to speaking with someone, who's currently going through the same life events that they are. They're in school, they are maybe working full time, have this. So finding someone who's more at that same level of life as you, that can maybe relate a little bit more, and just I think makes it a little bit easier to talk to sometimes about especially sensitive topics like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And again, that's why I'm such a big advocate for training and education, because I think it's really easy for fellow students who aren't necessarily trained in this field to miss the warning signs when they're there with you. They're there. And in any kind of situation, as I mentioned earlier, CPR, like suicidal ideation and so on, the warning signs are typically there. Same thing with dating violence, domestic abuse. I was talking to Alyssa earlier, and everyone can hear me, right? I'm not doing too bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm hearing an echo on my end, that's all. But I was mentioning earlier, we are a digital generation, and a lot of people don't take into account there is digital abuse and online abuse that can occur within relationships. And the signs are there. And I've actually had personally some experiences with friends who were digitally abused in a relationship. And I've mentioned it, this is not okay. This is not healthy. And they kind of, didn't really think anything of it, or kind of brushed it off. But like I said, the warning signs are there. And I'm very fortunate to be able to recognize those warning signs, but not everybody is. But I think it's important for, like Alyssa said, for people our age and people at the same kind of age level to be familiar with these sort of situations, because we do get these situations brought to our attention, I think, more frequently than the authorities or people in maybe a higher authority.
Well, Love Bay, we want to welcome you again to Surfing in Silence with Minister Tia on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We are here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern, with a replay on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. and then also on Thursdays and Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern. And Love Bay, we also always want you to remember that we are rising out of the ashes together. So Alyssa, I want to ask you, can you speak to the importance of resources such as your organization, Morgan's Light and AAUW, and also the resources that you can point students to? Can you speak to the importance of those resources being available to students literally on campus, as opposed to someone running into a situation or having an issue and there's nothing and they don't know what to do or where to go?
Absolutely, yeah. So, one statistic that I have that is honestly just horrifying to me is so 1 in 3 young adults in the US between ages 18 and 14 are the victim of some form of abuse from their dating partner. So if we're thinking 1 in 3 and there's however many people on a college campus, that is a large number of these people that are probably going to have some sort of experience with some form of abuse. And for a lot of these people, that campus is their home. They're living there, they're taking their classes there. I know for me personally, I spend more time on Gwinnett's campus than I do at my own house. So by having these resources directly on campus where these people can go, and it's somewhere where they feel really comfortable on campus to go and get this help that they need, I think it just makes people more likely to seek help and seek advice from somewhere where they're comfortable rather than having to go to national resources and make phone calls that they don't know what to expect. They don't know who's going to be on the other line of that call, or going to police stations in their, wherever they are at campus that might not be their hometown. If they don't know where to go or what to expect. I think having these resources somewhere comfortable and somewhere where they're spending most likely a majority of their time is definitely going to make them more likely to seek out help if they need.
So when I speak about young people specifically in college, I always make the point that there are students who may not be dealing with issues that actually happen on campus. Some of our students are dealing with issues that they're bringing with them from high school, from middle school. So my question to you all would be, have you run into scenarios where you're actually helping students, providing students with resources, but it's due to past trauma, it's due to trauma that happened before college, and they need to get through it so they can actually focus on college and, survive and pass? Has that been scenarios that you've seen?
Minister Tia, I had a student that came from Florida, and at that point she had been stalked by her boyfriend. And this was a decision that she worked out with her family and with her counselor, and she started a whole clean slate. And she really had to work through some of those issues of, do I feel safe here? Do I feel safe enough to learn here? So yes, and that, again, I think I know the tip of the iceberg as far as people's situations. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think as well, absolutely. I've had a friend of mine that was sexually assaulted in high school and never spoke about it, never really came forward because it was just, it was easier to just bury it. It was easier than trying to talk through it and kind of digging up all of that trauma and hurt. Um, and she went to a class one day and they were talking about domestic violence. And she told me afterwards, she's like, I don't know what it is. It just brought this back up that I didn't know I had buried so deeply. So she ended up going to counseling and is currently working through those issues, but it definitely was something that hadn't even necessarily really affected her until she got to college and had that kind of come back up.
So personally, I have not had somebody on campus come to me directly with sexual assault, or a situation of that nature. I have had helped friends through attempted suicide and suicide ideation. But you kind of read my mind, Tia, because again, I was talking with Alyssa before this evening, and we were mentioning how, there is starting to be more talk about sexual assault and domestic violence. However, there is still that lack of what happens afterward and lasting residual effects of sexual assault or domestic violence. And, people deal with a lot. And actually, the National Domestic Violence Hotline has wonderful statistics, scary statistics at that, that have a lot of vital information. And I'm just going to read when I took these statistics from that website. So survivors are 3 times more likely to engage in self-harming behavior. They're 3 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts and 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than those who have experienced domestic violence. So it really goes to show that the mental health portion, after experiencing domestic violence, really needs to be addressed.
Yes. So, yes, Bob.
I'm going to take it from the Title IX aspect, if I may. In my 13 years as a coordinator, I've lost count of how many people have come to me with something that has occurred prior. And currently, under CFR 34, Part 106, that's the big legal term for Title IX. As I said, the Violence Against Women Act is part of it. And it's kind of unusual the way it's written, because I will end up, the majority of domestic issues, dating issues, we don't have couples living on the campus 90% of the time. So it does indeed occur off campus, which VAWA kind of says we must address it, but Title IX wants it on campus. If it's off campus, you don't address it. And I said, well, that's counterproductive, and counterintuitive. And I will say this, and Maria, you know this, many times I've come to professors and said, hey, I have a student, X, Y, and Z is going on. Can we accommodate? Can we try to help? And the professors, the school has been very good in trying to do that, to try to make that accommodation. Somehow or another, we need to have the legislators figure out if it's this and it impacts the student's academic life, et cetera, it has to be addressed. Where it occurred is not the issue. Again, I'm thinking of, and the school where I was working did a very good job. A young lady was assaulted in town working off campus, and she virtually cloistered herself the rest of the semester. Consequently, her grades went downhill and she was academically dismissed, and she came to me and I got her reinstated. But the school extended that. And for me, again, like I said, this is our student, our community. She went out, to work in, but this occurred and she was coming back to us. We have to extend that. I mean, the legislators need to realize it doesn't all occur within the confines of the four corners of the campus.
Yes.
Our students go out. So, and I'm sure you all have had people talk to you about situations of just that nature.
So, Bob, you actually, you just touched on my next thought. So I want to be very, very supportive and encouraging to any students who may be listening, and not just at Gwinnett Mercy, any school, any college, any university, any high school, any student who is listening, I want you to think about what you need and take the steps and the actions that you need to for yourself. But the point that I wanted to make, and I would ask Bob if you and Maria could expound on it, is that if a student comes forth and there is help that they need, that the university, at least I know that Gwinnett would and other universities should, they should take that into account and offer some academic leniency or help to you. Because I know that there are students that are they're suffering with their issues and what they're dealing with, and are keeping it inside, and they're probably failing classes or missing classes, and it's getting worse. But if you open up, not only to get the help that you need for yourself mentally and emotionally and physically, but there is also academic help that is available to you if you take the step for it. So I really want to be encouraging. I know what it's like to see, a failing grade or a grade that, just you wanted something better. And if you take that and you put issues of sexual assault on top of it, domestic violence on top of it, and you keep that within yourself, you're going to implode. So again, I really want to encourage students to come forward. And in full disclosure, Love Bay, if I haven't told you before, I'm actually a student at Gwinnett. I love it. But no matter what university you're in, no matter what your level is, freshman, senior, graduate student, coming in, transfer student, whatever it is, if you take the steps to open up, if there's an organization on campus that you can go to, if it's the Title IX coordinator, if you open up, there should be an avenue of help for you. So Bob and Maria, if you would speak first, I would ask you if you could expound on that, because maybe somebody will feel a bit better knowing that.
Yeah, I love this question. Truly, if there are any students that are listening or will be listening, we feel so blessed at Gwinnett that we have so many different avenues. But if you're at a different university and you don't know where to go, think in your soul, who is that one teacher that you feel like you can go to? Maybe it's someone you had in your freshman year for an English class, but they had kind eyes and they listened to you. And please go to that person. And you don't need to go into a whole great bit of detail at that point, but just say, I need help. And I guarantee you someone is going to help you. Again, everybody is so different. For some of our students, they need academic assistance. So we have tutors. For some, they're hungry. So we have Catherine's Cupboard so they can go for supplies or food or what they need. We have a rich counseling department where there's walk-in hours all the time, and there's really amazing therapists and counselors that people can talk to. It's such a feeling of potentially being alone and that no one in the world understands what you're going through. Mm-hmm. Honestly, you will be so surprised. There are a lot of people that understand and that want to help you.
That's absolutely 100% true. I know the difference in sizes in university. I'm in the Title IX consortium for the Philadelphia College University area. And one of my colleagues, which I will not mention the name of the university, but they're larger, much larger than we are. They've handled something like 247 Title IX calls, which, they're swamped. However, that doesn't mean they still don't try to help. Even there, they will get the person to where they need to go to. I have the liberty at Gwinnett, if somebody comes in and it's not necessarily Title IX, but they need assistance, I can still step in and try to help them anyway. In fact, I'm sure some people go, oh my God, here he comes again. But that's me. And where we are, I have not encountered anybody yet who is not willing to try to accommodate a student. And I think most people that go in the educational field are of that ilk. Nobody's going to just turn a student away. you may not be able to go to the length you wish to, but you will do something. I've I've never seen anybody just turn a student away, at least not in my 13 years of being a coordinator.
Mhm. So, Bob, I want to ask you a question. We have identified resources for students who may need them if they are victims or survivors. So, my question to you is, are there resources available to those who would be categorized as offenders? So, for instance, some scenarios will not have the severity of a student being expelled or arrested or of that magnitude. So,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
if there is an issue and the offender is still on campus, are there programs to help the offender basically? Or are
Sure.
there avenues, to help that person?
That avenue runs directly through my office. It can go from anything from if I know there's a program, say I'm going to say men for the sake of that, but where men get together and they have those scenarios and discussions, I can mandate that as part of the corrective corrective justice part of that system. It could be going with them into perhaps arranging a visit or some type of seminar through a group like Laurel House. In fact, we just entered into the state and came out with what's called Article 55. And we're in partnership with certain advocacy groups in our area. We're with Montco County Victims Assistance and Laurel House. And as you say, most of the time it's geared towards, I hate the word complainant. I used to always say the reporting person, but the law says we have to say complainant now. I'm going, person has a right to complain. Don't tell them. But going the other way, there is that opportunity to bring somebody, because I'm thinking back to one particular case where I had, and the young person really had no idea this was just not acceptable. So it required corrective justice, and we worked that through. And I could see where those programs would become valuable, and getting that individual to see the other side of that discussion and where they've come from. But currently, it runs through my office on our campus.
Okay. So we are just under the hour, and what I want to do is to give everyone a moment for a final thought. What would you leave, not only students, but what would you leave professors and parents with? What would be your word tonight on those who are listening, all those who should be concerned about our students on campus and their well-being, their mental and physical well-being? Brooke, I'll ask you first.
So we did say a lot tonight. I think my final thought would be, this is very real. A lot of people think, oh, it couldn't happen to me. It wouldn't happen to me. It wouldn't happen to my sister, my mom, my grandmother, my brother, my cousin. But it does. And it can happen to anybody, no matter the age, gender, sexuality, how you identify. And I think that kind of needs to be heard. And I think as a result, we just need to be aware. We need to listen, like we mentioned, and listening and talking about these types of conversations in these situations is the first step to progress.
Alyssa?
I think for me, for those who maybe haven't experienced this but want to help others, is really that listening. Approaching the situation in a non-judgmental way, and just like Bob said, closing your mouth and opening your ears, and just listening to the person and their story and accepting them where they're at. And for people who have gone through this and have experienced it, just finding your support system, I think, is really important. Whether it be another student or a teacher or a parent or Title IX, finding who's going to support you and telling your story to that person. Even if you don't want to go any further with it, just getting it off your chest and talking to someone is going to help tremendously.
Maria?
Some really beautiful feedback from Brooke and Alyssa. I'd like to build off of that and say, please not only listen, but believe what the individual that you're saying is telling you is their truth, is the truth. And they may seem very confused or foggy or disoriented, maybe even. And the true nurse, that nudgy nurse is like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. This just, so give up that and truly listen and believe. And to the instructors out there, not everything has to have a due date. Like, we have to look at the situation, and don't be afraid to talk to your students and see what's going on. Have that open respect where your student will come to you, or when you go to them to check in, they're really going to tell you the truth and tell you that they need help.
Thank you. Bob, what would you leave with our students and professors and parents on tonight?
Parents and professors, I'm going to start there. What Maria just said, there's that believe. I know there's been a lot of talk with litigation from the complainant side of, well, the second you say you believe somebody, you've made a decision. No, I haven't. If a young person or any person walks into my office and says, hey, X, Y, and Z has occurred, my job is to figure out how and what actually occurred with X, Y, and Z. But I believe something has occurred that had that young person come and talk to me. And I kind of will look at people and say, who wants to walk in and talk to a 7-year-old guy about these issues? Mm-hmm. Something made that person come through my door. So, and most of us try to do this. Don't be judgmental. I worked with a lady one time. She's actually very famous. And she told her story. And the only part I saw when she re-traveled and re-walked that entire trauma was when she spoke to her dad, and her dad made a comment back about, I told you not to do that. That was the only time I saw tears in her eyes. The rest of it she had worked through, but that still stuck with her. That's that unseen scar you've heard me talk about. Mm-hmm. With students, understand, I'll speak for Gwynedd. When you, first off, professors, parents, student comes to you, they trust you. They've just given you the largest compliment in the world. They trust you. Mm-hmm. Contacting my office or somebody like me in that office is not an automatic. You're not betraying the student's trust, because I will never, ever make a student do anything. I will never make them move forward with an inquiry. I won't even make them come in and talk to me. My function is to say, I'm here. If you need me, I'm here. Are you okay? And that's it. And, that's part of the service. And knowing that door's open. I've had people come back a month later, a year later. It depends on the time of when that individual's ready. So I guess my point is, by making that initial reach out to somebody like myself, you're giving that option back to the individual. You're empowering them in a way to put the report where it needs to be, and I can revisit it later. Because if it hasn't been there, then it's, you're starting from square one, maybe a month, maybe a year later. So that does happen. Students, I know the difficulty in coming forward with a story. I understand that deeply. But try to find that person you trust. And another thing I will tell students, a good friend is somebody quite frequently who will just sit there with you. Mm-hmm. Just be there and just sit and let things take their course, because they will. Mm-hmm. They will. And I personally want to thank the three of you for everything you have done to help me move this thing forward. And always, Minister Tia, you're my partner here.
Yes.
So I just can't tell people enough. It's that important, because there are more people out there who are survivors than we have any idea. There really are.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you all for being here on tonight. I thank you all for what it is that you do. I would like to say to students, if you find yourself in a situation, your life is not over, your academic career is not over, Gwinnett Mercy University is my second chance. I started at Drexel University, and I came out of school because of issues with domestic violence. I tried to go back to school over the years, but my ex-husband always found a way to sabotage me. And it has always been a personal goal to me to finish my bachelor's degree and to move on further. People ask me right now, what am I going to do with my degree once I graduate from Gwinnett? And I tell everyone it's a personal goal. I literally already have the job I would need a degree for. But this is a personal goal for me. So I want to encourage all the students, no matter what your age is. Next month, I will be 47 years old. I will be 47 and I'm in school. I'm finishing my degree. So I know what the fear is like. I know what the hurt, the pain, the shame is like. I understand it. And so students, I want to say to you to reach out, to get the help that you need. And even if for some time you felt like you needed to take a break and do some things differently, just because you take a different path, it does not mean that your life is over. It does not mean that your education is over. So again, for me, Gwinnett Mercy is my second chance. Gwinnett Mercy is me accomplishing my goal, in which I am loving this experience. I am appreciating it very much. If I can do it, you can do it. So students, no matter what school you're in, if you're at Drexel, if you're at Gwinnett, if you're in Harvard, Princeton, wherever, wherever you are, if you're out at Cheney or Lincoln, if you're at a local college, the state college, if you're at a huge university, you can do it and you can get the help that you need. There are individuals such as Maria and Brooke, Alyssa and Bob who are available to help you. And if you cannot find an organization on campus, then you reach out to the national numbers, the local numbers. Do what you need to do for yourself to get the help that you need and for you to be able to continue in your life, because you're worth it. You are absolutely worth it. So if anything, I would just like to be that example on tonight. You're never too old to be a college student. You're never too old to finish your dream. And if I could just leave you with this, Love Bay, I got my Camaro too. That was another dream.
Yeah.
I got my Camaro and I tinted my windows, not the windshield.
And I keep asking her for the racing stripes. When are they coming?
I told Bob I was ready to take somebody out to the airport, like meet me at midnight and just like. But I got my Camaro. That was something that I had on my list. That was a goal that I wanted. You might not be able to do everything at the same time, but you can get it done, whatever it is, whatever is in your heart. And so, Love Bay, that's what I want to leave you with on tonight. Again, I thank you all for being with us. I thank you for everything that you shared. I thank you for everything that you do. Love Bay, if you want to catch up on previous episodes from our program, you can visit our YouTube channel at Suffering in Silence DV. Thank you again for joining Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We are here every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. And please remember that we are rising out of the ashes together. Good evening.